So this is item number 2, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-4062, block 210, lot 34, 35 Lispenard Street in the Tribeca East Historic District. A one-story garage designed by Mac L. Reiser and built in 1954 to 56. The application is to install storefront infill and signage.
Good morning, Mary Ann Hurley, preservation staff. This one-story brick garage is located on the north side of Lispenard between Broadway and Church Street. The proposal is for the removal of the existing cladding, door, and storefront window, repairing the brick parapet and piers, and installing 4 pairs of French doors and transom windows. A new cornice, awning, and sign band with planters will be added above the doors. The existing light fixtures at the parapet coping will be retained, and rooftop planter boxes will be added behind the brick parapet. The project architect, James Saunders, is here today.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here representing...
Name for the record, just to restate it. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
I'm actually not the project, I'm not the architect of record on the project, but I am the representative, Landmark's representative, for Georges Bourgeois, who is a restaurateur who runs Circle Rouge in Tribeca, if you know that, or Clarkson's, about 3 or 4 other places. And he used to own a place called Café Noir in Soho, but he is now looking to create a smaller version, a sort of small cafe lounge, well, not lounge, cafe restaurant at 35 Lispenard Street in Tribeca. It's at the very north end of the Tribeca East Historic District. It's right up here. It's almost at Church Street, and it's on the north side of the block. And it was from what I understand from reading the designation report, there was a 3-story brick building there at one point. It was torn down in the mid-1950s by the same owner that owned the place on the corner. There's another modern brick building that goes to the corner. This was done a year or so later by an architect called Mac Reiser. I don't know much about him or been able to find anything else about him. The building is about as simple as you can imagine. It is basically a 1-story taxpayer building. It's got a brick facade that consists of 2 brick piers on either side and basically a brick spandrel or lintel, whatever you want to call it, going across with a piece of steel. Its one little piece of architecture, so to speak, is a scalloped coping at the very, very top of I guess, limestone, which we intend to preserve. In the 1960s, it went through a whole bunch of life. We've been looking here. This was the photo at the time of the designation in '93. Apparently, the entire facade was covered with marble tile. And at an earlier date in 1980, there was a brick infill panel. So it's gone through a couple of different lives. Apparently, the marble tile has come off. I suspect it was used as a garage when it was built, because it's just got this wide span and this wide opening. It was just a 1-story warehouse type of building, or garage type of building. In 1969, apparently, application was made but not fulfilled until right before the district was designated. Probably they were kind of sneaking it in right before the designation to infill this with a sort of pinkish marble infill panel here inside the brick with some doors and a sort of picture window. And that's what's been there till this day with a roll down steel grate. And Georges would like to create a kind of homage to a French, Parisian cafe, basically, within the context of this very simple facade. And I worked with him to make this as appropriate as we could to the very, very basic, we might say proto-modern architecture. He has some beautiful French doors which he wanted to use, which are, I thought, fairly appropriate, because although they've got a little bit of sort of trim, so to speak, their shape is still very kind of rectilinear, and I urged him to keep it very simple. Even if he wanted to do sort of a traditional design, I suggested he keep it very, very simple in sort of keeping with the look of the building. Basically, we proposed to just simply clean the existing brick as best we can and the coping, and then insert this 8 pairs of doors. 3 of the pairs would be identical. They're 31-inch doors. They open inward, and they would be where there's a couple of little cafe seats and so forth. Nothing would project in front of the building line. The last bay would consist of a fixed door where we would have the menu behind the glass, and then the actual operable door for the restaurant. There would be a series of matched transoms that would be above, and they'll be made by a mill worker to match exactly the profiles, and we've given you a little profile layer. Basically, this is based on the existing, and we're showing how we would match. And we'll come up, there's a steel lintel, and we'll simply come up to it, fireproof it, and then come down from that with a little simple wood header that would then, it's trimmed around. He then, he wanted to have a awning, which seemed very apropos, and so we have created that. We didn't bring an awning sample, but we have the sample color, and it's just a basic roll-down, traditional, I don't even think he wants to use a motor, just basically the old traditional awning. And then he wanted what he called a corniche, a term I had never heard. But he explained to me that all the traditional cafes in Paris, and we brought some Paris precedent here for you to look at, for all the years I've been sitting under these places having coffee or whatever, I never really took a look at these things. Basically, you build a kind of a shelf, and the awning comes underneath the shelf, and then above it, you've got a sign panel. And so we've kind of recreated that. It's a simple, it'll be basically a steel tube, steel frame with, fitted out with, and finished in wood and painted. The color is here, we call it fascia. And then he had a traditional sign, which he had as a painted sign, and what we've done is recreated the shape of the letters as standout, pop-out letters in wood, which I thought would be quite nice, put on wood strips. And then he pointed out one other thing, which was the old cafes very often had planting on either side. They had planters. If you look at the fourth page, you'll see that that was quite the case. And it's one of the things that makes them so lovely. So in homage to that, we have created 2 planter boxes on either side, which basically sit, if you look at the section, basically sit on this shelf. So the shelf is kind of doing multiple duty. We thought about the lighting. There are 2 existing utilitarian lighting fixtures that go out there. They're, I guess, unpainted aluminum. They just, pop out a couple of feet, and then they flood or wash, should we say, the upper part of that. And we thought about revising that, but doing some sort of upwash or something like that. But in the end, we thought, well, they're just there, and they have their kind of utilitarian flavor in a way that sort of complements the really basic utilitarian nature of the facade as a whole. And we would do a bluestone base here. There's the restaurant is one step up, and we would just face that with some bluestone. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else to tell you. I mean, the block itself is a very, very handsome block. I happen to live and work on the same block right down the street, and it's mostly otherwise cast iron. Our building is 45, which is that interesting sort of another kind of proto-modern building. And this is just this little 25-foot wide, 1-story taxpayer in the corner, and we think it will be a very, nice addition to the neighborhood. Georges is a long time Tribeca restaurateur. He's very, very sensitive to community concerns. He would not want to do anything that would make him unpopular in the community. He's known for running, Circle Rouge. Very, very nice operation. And very
So, okay, I only have one question. When's it opening? Okay.
He wants to get it open before the when we
What's the name of the place on the corner to your left or toward your?
La Colombe,
La what?
the one, the cafe.
Yeah, La Colombe.
La Colombe, the coffee place across the street.
That's the one.
And the other important point is, does it have a sidewalk cafe permit
It
yet?
does not, and there will be no sidewalk cafe.
Bummer.
Huh,
How many
okay.
do you really
Well, what we
get?
did, and it's a good question. What I tried to do for him was all of these open, except this one. There'll be, I should explain. We'll just do a simple vestibule. I know that's a little bit beyond your jurisdiction, but he's gonna have a panel here of wooden glass. This will open in, and we'll do the rod with the heavy curtain behind, so really kind of traditional cafe. So that will open in. It's less than 75, capacity of 75, so the door can open in, and that's how we're gonna deal with that. But the notion is to have these open, and in a summer evening, just have people in little deuces here, and
Right.
bars back here somewhere, and Circle Rouge, that's worked out very, very nicely. It doesn't seem to, they do have a cafe, it doesn't bother anybody. Sidewalk there is only 12 feet, it's pretty narrow. So,
I'm having a little bit of trouble envisioning a Parisian cafe and Lispenard Street, and I'm wondering if the applicant has actually willing to supply round-trip airfare tickets so that we can,
visit?
for a site visit.
I don't believe that what you said is under those awnings is really under there. We have
Let's
to
check it out.
verify that. Okay, any further questions? Yes, Michael?
Much more mundane. Where does the water go in your plants?
That's a really good question. We have pitched, for you mean these guys?
Yeah.
We have, that's worth thinking about. We have noted a pitch to the top of the shelf. So in the morning, we presume it just kind of go off,
Dripping onto your beautiful canopy.
dripping on, we would roll
And
up
then
the
down the
canopy.
coronation to my coffee.
Yeah, pretty much. No one's outside, remember?
Just like Paris.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, this came up in the Landmarks Committee of CB1. The planters will be independent, will be furniture pieces that are clipped into place so they can be removed for maintenance. There was one gentleman on the Landmarks Committee who seemed concerned about the planters, but everybody else at Landmarks at CB1 seemed to be very excited about it.
Okay, nothing further, any testimony? Okay, discussion.
I'm absolutely in favor of this. I can approve it. I would, if I also might put in a brief plug, Georges is also one of the sponsors of the Bastille Day Pétanque tournament that takes place in front of Circle Rouge. So,
Please disregard that comment in your deliberations. Joan?
I can support this. I think it's very appropriate and quite charming, and it really it's going to be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood.
I agree. I would say that, I mean, I assume this is a no-style building, is it? I mean, I don't know why this couldn't be done at a staff level, and I would say, that, you know,
Well, this particular district predates the time when we were using no style as a term. So, but the reason that this isn't being done at staff level under our storefront rules is that the storefront rules currently do not allow for storefronts that consist solely of operable doors.
no,
because
that's
of the
interesting,
configuration.
because we've been seeing a zillion of those, and I can't think of one that hasn't gone through because of its design since my first days many weeks ago. So yeah, I would say that's a great thing ripe for modification. And I would just suggest that the applicant consider interior drainage for that little shelfie so that the drips don't come on my cafe.
Selfie in front of the shelf.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful proposal and not atypical of many that we see kind of in general, and certainly works in this neighborhood given context. I would actually, in terms of the no-style building concept, just because we had a recent sort of unfortunate experience with how we described this building, that in the C of A, that it be carefully described not as a building that, to which the facade adds contribution, et cetera, right? Just like that.
I think that the design is very well done, chosen, and the colors, the materials, everything, it's very suitable to the district, and I can approve it.
Okay, hearing closed, motion second. Marjorie, please, thank you. Number two?
Two.
Yep.
Item 2. Yeah, I lost mine too.
Okay. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness for 35 Lispenard Street in the Tribeca East Historic District, the application is to install storefront infill and signage. I recommend approval, finding that the removal of the 1991 facade alterations, including the tile cladding, entrance door, roll-down gate, awning, and signage box, will not eliminate significant historic fabric and will remove features that detract from the facade. That the brick piers and parapet with stone coping will be exposed, repaired, and cleaned, thereby retaining original building materials and design. That the new storefront infill will consist of operable pairs of wood glazed French doors with paneled bases and fixed transom windows, thereby recalling the proportions of traditional storefront designs when closed. That the new retractable awning will be partially hidden under a fabricated wood storefront cornice unit that will also serve to support planter boxes that will add interest to the simple facade. That the wood signboard will support lettering that will be lit with the existing parapet-mounted light fixtures that are in keeping with utilitarian character of the garage and relate well to the scale of the building, and that the materials, details, and painted finish of the storefront and signage will be harmonious with the building's facade and streetscape.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?